Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the first ever Rougarou Sports Network podcast. I'm Corey Roldan.
And I'm Elliot Reeder.
So, Elliot, do you know what the Rougarou is?
I've done a little bit of research here. If I remember correctly, it was this defensive back and special team that used to play at Mississippi College. Is that correct?
That is very true, man. That is very true. But I got my Rougarou shirt on, the Louisiana Swamp Monster, a new brand, a new start to this podcast adventure. We have Elliot Reeder here. We're going to have Devin Jackson on. We're going to have Andrew Scher, a lot of young, exciting talent in the sports media industry. And, Elliot, let's get it started. You're excited about this first topic, the Saints losing. They lost on Monday Night Football in the Raiders home opener, or do you call it a home opener with no fans? But they lost to the Las Vegas Raiders by the score of 34-24. Elliot, what happened?
I think overall it's just a lack of focus from the Saints, especially on defense. Malcolm Jenkins struggled. Marshawn Lattimore did not seem nearly as engaged as he was in week one when he was shutting down Mike Evans. And especially you look at in terms of covering the tight end, Darren Waller went off 12 catches, 100-plus yards and a touchdown, and also a ton of penalties, over 10 penalties, over 100 penalty yards. And the Saints could not get off the field on third and fourth down. Just overall a lack of focus.
I agree, especially the Marshawn Lattimore point. The guy is incredible when he's going against top 10 receivers. And I said this against the Bucs. I'd rather him engage and making those chippy plays that he does against Mike Evans than him not engage. And he was not engaged at all versus the Las Vegas Raiders. Also, putting Malcolm Jenkins on Waller instead of Demario Davis. Demario Davis played great. Maybe him and Trey Henderson and Rose are maybe the three players that played great the whole game, where Malcolm Jenkins struggled. He looked old. And for me, the third down and ones were the most frustrating parts of the game. It was like, Gruden's going to go play action. His favorite play is spider wide to banana. It's coming. And yet again, those fullbacks and the tight ends were always open on third and short. So that was frustrating. And the Saints offensively, they need to continue to try to run the football. They had 19 rushes for 112 yards. Why did we stop running the football? Why did the Saints stop? They had 38 passes. The running game was working. They were up 17-7, up 10-0 because of the running game. Don't stop running the football next Sunday versus the Green Bay Packers. And fourthly, the Saints receiving court, it's not as good as we were expecting in the beginning of the year. Emmanuel Sanders hasn't learned the playbook yet. Traquan Smith is inconsistent. I'm excited for Deontay Harris, but besides that, who's getting open? Jared Cook has inconsistency. The Saints offense as a whole is just very inconsistent right now. So let me ask you the next question. Is Drew Brees washed?
I don't think he's necessarily washed. I think obviously he's not prime Drew Brees anymore. But I think what you saw on Monday was really the Michael Thomas factor. Without Michael Thomas in there, Drew Brees did not have that dependable receiver in the passing game, and it showed. And really for the first 2 weeks of the season, the only consistent threat in the passing game has been Alvin Kamara out of the backfield. That's been the only consistent threat. Emmanuel Sanders only has 4 catches so far. Traquan's had several big drops. So, and Jared Cook's been up and down, and Michael Thomas has obviously been dealing with the injury. So I think the Saints just really need Michael Thomas back and need his consistency in kind of that comfort blanket for Drew Brees to be able to throw the ball to.
For a Falcons fan, you made me smile because finally somebody has reason. All these ESPN analysts getting the notifications on my phone. I can't wait for Sunday. We'll get to Sunday in a little bit. But Drew Brees is not washed. He's going to be fine. The Saints offense are going to be fine. Like you said, you need Michael Thomas. And it shows that Michael Thomas is that important. The dude won Offensive Player of the Year. You lost an Offensive Player of the Year to this offense. Also, the Saints' offensive line hasn't gotten it together as well. I think Drew Brees is going to be fine. No, he's not going to be throwing the 40-yard bombs, 50-yard bombs. But gradually as the season get on, Saints offense are going to start to get into the rhythm. So let me ask you this: what are some 3 takeaways from this past game?
Number one, you mentioned is the they stopped running the ball, and I look back to the game last year against the Falcons. It was the same thing with the play calling, and it just sort of seems like Sean Payton sometimes he just gets in this groove of we have to pass the ball, we have to pass the ball, we have to pass the ball. And when you have a running back that you just gave this huge extension to in Kamara, why not feed him the ball, get him the ball? That's number one. Number two is the penalties. I believe the Saints are the most penalized team in football the first 2 weeks of the season, which just goes back to the lack of focus. And number three is you've got to get off the field on third down. That's how you tire yourself out on defense. Is if you can't get off the field, that's guaranteeing at least 3 more plays for the other team. And I go back to a couple years ago, the Georgia LSU game. In the regular season, it was the same thing. LSU converted 4 or 5 fourth downs, fourth and short, and it was super frustrating for Georgia, and that ultimately wore Georgia down and helped win LSU the game. You've got to be able to get off the field on third and fourth down.
Oh, I agree with you. Actually, all my points you just made, I'm going to throw an extra one in there. But the penalties, you cannot have 129 yards on 10 penalties and expect to win football games in the NFL. The NFL, a lot of people don't understand, unlike college, is not like a mismatch. It's not a huge difference. This is all NFL players, okay? So when you give an extra 129 yards to another team, that's a huge advantage. Like you said, get off of the field on third downs. I already said it, the third and short, you knew the play action was coming, and the Saints could not stop it. The Las Vegas Raiders, surprising stat, they rushed the ball 35 times for 116 yards. That's 3.3 yards per carry. It wasn't like they just ran all over the Saints defense. It was the third and shorts that killed the Saints. And for a little extra one, Sean Payton might need to start wearing his mask a little bit more. John Gruden as well. So I don't know if you want a $100,000 fine every single week for not wearing the mask.
Did you see Bill Belichick's mask?
Did you see Bill Belichick's shirt? Oh man, dude, look homeless. So, all right, let's talk about our next topic, the Big Ten, man. The Big Ten is back. I know you're pumped. I'm pumped, covering the Hawkeyes up here in Iowa. So, what were your reactions to the news?
I was just excited. I mean, it's more football. It's more top, really good teams back in action. Big games, big rivalries. I mean, as a college football fan, you've got to be excited. Like, yes, it makes it tougher. It's going to make it a lot tougher to get a group of 5 team in the playoffs. Before the Big Ten came back, I was saying, this could be the year that a group of 5 team gets in. But now that gets a lot harder. It gets a lot harder to get a second team in from another conference. But as a college football fan, you've got to be excited about Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Iowa, among others, getting back in action, some of the top teams in the country.
Dude, agree. Because what is the best 2 conferences in college football, I think, obviously, are the SEC and the Big Ten. You need the Big Ten. Like, all the history and the traditions, like you said. And for me, I'm excited to go cover these guys. I'm excited to go to Purdue. I'm excited to, go to Iowa. I know there's not going to be fans, but to cover these athletes and see them compete, because this affects lives, right? You saw last year with Joe Burrow. And, we know coronavirus is a very serious threat. But last year, if Joe Burrow didn't get that season, he would have been a 6th-round draft pick, right? And it's just amazing to see that they're finally coming back. And then see today, the Pac-12 is going to come back starting November, playing 7 games. The Big Ten is going to play 8 games, and in the 9th game, the matchup seeding, which is going to be fun. But what are some teams you're really looking forward to see?
Well, I think obviously the biggest one is Ohio State. They're one of the top teams in the country. They have one of the top quarterbacks in the country in Justin Fields, Sean Wade and Wyatt Davis both opting back in. So I think they're obviously the top ones and a national championship contender. But if you really look outside of the top 3 or 4, I think Minnesota and Iowa are the 2. I think, Iowa, they need some improved quarterback play, but I think they have a very good team. And Minnesota is a very exciting exciting team in those two teams in the West, trying to dethrone Wisconsin.
Oh, I agree with you 100% right there because Iowa's got, they beat USC, a team. A lot of people are high on USC at the end of the year. They absolutely beat them. For granted, they lost Tristan Wirfs. They lost Nate Stanley at their quarterback, but they're getting back a lot of skill players. Tyler Goodson, their running back, was really good at the end of the year. He's like a human joystick. They have a lot of really good receivers in Amir Smith-Morset, who had a kickoff return, a receiving touchdown, and a rushing touchdown against USC in the Holiday Bowl. They got Brandon Smith as well. Defensively, they're always solid. But another team I'm looking out for is what is Michigan going to do this year? Jim Harbaugh sometime has to break the streak with Ohio State. And in a crazy short year, why not this year?
Yeah, I agree. I think, and look, I think eventually with every year, it seems like the pressure is mounting and mounting and mounting, and more people are saying, "Hey, Harbaugh, he has to win, or else he might be gone. He has to break through, beat Ohio State, win the Big Ten East, win the Big Ten, and try to make it to the playoffs," which they have not done. And as you said, again, with this crazy 2020 season, we don't know what we're going to see. We've already seen a couple upsets. We've already seen the Sun Belt just destroy the Big 12. Who knows what we're going to see. And I want to throw this in there. One player that I'm excited for is somebody that just opted back in, and that is Ron.
I was about to say Purdue right after getting
one of the top players in the country. Again, he had an injury-shortened year last year, so we haven't really gotten to see him since 2018. But you look in 2018, he had over 1,200 receiving yards, over 600 kick return yards, and a couple hundred rush yards. This guy, he's kind of like the Laviska Shenault of the Big Ten. Super talented player, and so I'm really looking forward to getting to see him, one of the best players in the country, regardless of conference, regardless of team.
One of the best receivers in the country as well, man. I'm excited to see that Purdue team. Iowa versus Purdue, week 1, October 24th. That's going to be an exciting game, the home of Drew Brees. But some other matchups, you obviously got Ohio State, Michigan. But Penn State, what are we going to see out of the Nittany Lions this year?
Right. I think, Penn State, they really haven't really kind of gotten back to where they were when they had Saquon Barkley and when they went to the Rose Bowl. They've just always been this good team, but they really haven't been able to put it all together and make it to the playoffs. Look, I don't think they're as good as Ohio State, but I think with 10-game schedule, I think they definitely can go 8-2. But again, the question is, can they put it all together and not just win one big game, not just beat Michigan, not just beat Ohio State, but can they beat both of them? And so I think for Penn State, I think they definitely have the talent to go 7-3 or 8-2. I think they're probably a top 15 team in the country. But again, I don't think they're as good as Ohio State, and so I don't necessarily think that they're a college football playoff team right now. But again, they could surprise us.
On paper, I think Ohio State's the best team in the country. Just going to throw that out there. But let's talk about the NBA. We got NBA playoffs going on right now. The Lakers are up 10, 50-40 against the Denver Nuggets. Let's talk about the East first. So what are you seeing out of the Miami Heat?
Yeah, they're just a team that is just bought into each other, bought into this team. Eric Spoelstra has done an incredible job coaching this team. And look, Spoelstra received a lot of flack back in the LeBron days because everybody just said, hey, he's not really doing anything. He's got LeBron, he's got Wade, he's got Bosh. But we've seen him the last couple of years take a team with very little hype in terms of coming into the season, very few guys that were, high top draft picks. Bam was a lottery pick, but that's really about it. They've taken a lot of guys out of the D League, out of the second round. Hero was in the late lottery, and they've just got everybody buying in. They're playing great defense. They're making big shots, and they're just a team that is one of those teams that nobody likes to play. Nobody wants to play.
No, you're exactly right. And it moved the basketball. Last night, it was beautiful to see the cuts. They love the cut, and they have a good spacing, too, where Tyler Hero just is so confident right now for a 20-year-old. I believe Magic Johnson's the only younger player that scored that much points. He had 36 points at 20 years old. And just to see his confidence, and then Jimmy Butler being the leader. You heard a lot about Jimmy Butler over the past few years with the Minnesota Timberwolves, and now he's really kind of loved on these young players and embraced them. Today at practice, he was wearing Tyler Hero's high school jersey, dude. And like you said, the job that the Heat have done in drafting, they have no lottery picks, I don't believe. None, right? Yes, I believe that. Like, no top 10 picks. And Bam was a 15th pick in the draft. I believe Tyler Hero was 15th or 14th or 15th. But they've done a great job at drafting these young mid-round talents. And it's really great to see because they play great basketball. They play team basketball. They play great defense. And the Celtics are a really good team, but right now they're just getting out-executed and outmatched.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Celtics, I mean, I think we're seeing their lack of a true legit big man is really coming back to bite them. They don't really have anybody that can go toe-to-toe with Bam Adebayo on a consistent basis. You know, Tice can do it defensively, but Tice really doesn't bring enough offensively. And the two Williamses aren't really there yet. I mean, I think the Celtics are a really good young team. Jason Tatum is a stud. Jaylen Brown is a stud. Gordon Hayward's really come into his own, really found a role in Boston. Marcus Smart, I love Marcus Smart, even though he flops a lot. But this is a team they're long, but they don't really have a big man. And I think that's really coming back to bite them.
And I think they're going to fight and compete and may win tomorrow night because, you know, it's a team like Kemba plays hard, right? Tatum had an off night the other night. I just think the Heat are just have a little bit more depth as well off the bench. They can throw a lot of guys out there like Iguodala and Jay Crowder, who we haven't mentioned, you know, and I just think they're a better team. And I think they have a really strong shot at beating whoever comes out the West. And you're seeing that right now in the Western Conference Finals. I think whoever wins this game probably wins that series. You know, a little hot take throwing that out there, but that series, the Nuggets should be up 2-1. An excellent shot by Anthony Davis. He finally has his clutch moment. But people are acting like Jokic is playing bad against him. Jokic has been balling.
Yeah, you know, Jokic is this incredible talent, right? He very low draft pick, second round, I believe, and he's an incredible passer, incredible scorer, and he's just this new age big man that's just super hard to guard. And we really are in this series seeing a battle of two absolutely incredible big men, maybe two of the best big men talents of all time, in Anthony Davis versus Jokic. And Anthony Davis, you look at it, he's got to do a better job of rebounding the ball. He had 0 or 1 rebound in game 3. He's got to do better. And the Lakers as a whole have to do better rebounding the ball if they're going to want to win this series.
Agree. And Jamal Murray's been absolutely insane. LeBron's been playing well. But besides AD and LeBron, the Lakers need to find that third guy that can give them anything at all. And I think tonight it's Dwight Howard's rebounding the ball pretty well. All right, so let's go to the next topic. SEC plays opening up this week. You know, exciting time for college football. So what are your predictions for the SEC?
Look, I think the SEC is going to be very fun. And, you know, again, 10-game season, anything can happen, right? You know, 1 or 2 losses and you're behind the 8 ball. And I think we're also going to see some teams that have that are going to be backed in the corner, and they're going to be more willing to come out and put it all out there. And in teams, and we saw this announcement today that we could be potentially seeing no win requirement for bowl games. And so we've got teams where every bowl game or every game matters for all of these teams, whether or not they're, you know, 2-4 or what. And I think the quarterback play is going to be the biggest question in the SEC. I mean, you look at Alabama. How long is Mac Jones going to be able to hold off Bryce Young? You look at LSU. Is Miles Brennan going to be able to? What is he going to do? Walk in the footsteps behind Joe Burrow? I mean, at Georgia, you've got questions with the health of JT Daniels. Joey Gatewood, is he going to be eligible at Kentucky? Bo Nix, can he take the next step at Auburn? I mean, really every team you've got some questions and a lot to see at the quarterback position. So I'm really excited for that in the SEC.
I am too, and I'm gonna make an SEC prediction, a preseason prediction. Who's gonna win the SEC? And it's a surprise. And it's a team I hate. It's a team you hate as well. The Florida Gators are gonna win the SEC this year. It's a little bit of a sleeper team, but I think they can be that team, like that surprise team that LSU was last year. They're not going to be as dominant as LSU team last year. Maybe one of the most dominant teams ever, if not the most dominant. But I think the Florida Gators have a lot of talent returning. I think they're going to be really good. And LSU is going to be a lot better than people expect. They have a lot of talent still coming back with Terrence Marshall. I think they got this big, tall tight end that's coming. He's 6'6". They call him similar to Megatron. He's a freshman. I'm excited to see him. LSU's got a lot of really good running backs. I think Miles Brennan's going to be fine in that offense. They're not going to put up the numbers Joe Burrow put up, but, putting up kind of sort of that numbers would be the second greatest LSU offense of all time. So I'm excited to see. What is your most interesting matchup this week?
In this, obviously Auburn versus Kentucky jumps off the paper. It's looking like Joey Gatewood is not going to be eligible this weekend, which is kind of a bummer. Really wanted to see that matchup. But again, I think Kentucky has a chance to be the third best team in the East and maybe try to take down Florida or Georgia. And so this week is a big matchup for that. But I also think an under the radar matchup is Tennessee versus South Carolina. I think Tennessee, if they are really going to take that next step, they have to win this game. They have to win these games, and so I'm excited for both of those matchups.
Tennessee's my sleeper team this year. I think they take that next step. They've been recruiting well. It's a historic program. Eventually, they're going to get it on, right? They're going to find it out. So I like Tennessee this year as another sleeper team. Let's move on to the Saints-Packers. All right, so Week 3 in the NFL, Sunday Night Football. Drew Brees' cleats didn't work last week for his Monday Night Football, but you know what else he's good at? Sunday Night Football. So what are your keys to victory for the Saints?
Well, number one, I'm going to look at the health of the receivers on both sides. Michael Thomas on one side, Devontae Adams on the other. Both are dealing with injuries. And if Adams is healthy, I'm really looking forward to Adams versus Lattimore. We've talked about Lattimore. He's really gets locked in against the top receivers, and Adams is one of the top receivers in the league. So I'm looking forward to that matchup right there, number one. Number two is Emmanuel Sanders. He has to step up. He has 4 catches for 33 yards, I think, on the season. He's got to do better with or without Michael Thomas in that lineup. Emmanuel Sanders needs to be more involved in the offense. And number 3 is Aaron Jones. The Saints have to stop Aaron Jones. They did a good job against Josh Jacobs. But you look, the last time these two teams met up, Aaron Jones had, I believe, 131 yards rushing. The Saints are going to need to lock in on him and try to take him out of the game. And if they can do that, I think that's going to really help them on the back end dealing with the likes of Devontae Adams.
I think what really helped the Saints out in Week 1 versus the Bucs is getting those turnovers, setting your offense up in short field. So I think getting turnovers and not turning over the ball is crucial Sunday night. Also, the Packers scored 40 points. He scored 43 versus the Vikings and 42 versus the Lions. So the Saints have to keep the Packers under 30 to win this football game. And thirdly, offense has to find a rhythm. You got to get some sort of rhythm. I don't, run the ball with Alvin Kamara, get Deontay Harris involved, get Taysom Hill involved. Just get the offense rolling a little bit. Sunday Night Football, you're back home. You're going to have 750 people in the stands. This is prime time. And I think the Saints are going to come out, just talking about some key players. Drew Brees is going to have a big game. All right. And I saved some receipts on it. All right. I saved some screenshots of some tweets I've seen some NFL experts joking about putting Jameis Winston in, saying Drew Brees is washed. I'm letting you know. I saved him. All right. And Sunday night comes when he has 350 yards and the Saints' victory over the Packers. I'm going to be using those tweets. All right. Just let you know that. So what are some key players for you?
I think is I mentioned Marshawn Lattimore and Malcolm Jenkins. I think those two on the back end. I think Marshawn Lattimore kind of brings the helps bring the swagger for this defense. And when he's chippy, when he's getting in the face of the receivers, I think the defense feeds off of that. And so I think those two really need to step up. And then, as I mentioned, Emmanuel Sanders and then also Jared Cook. I think if Cook can help get involved in the passing game, I think that'll really help the Saints and really helps take some pressure off of these young receivers.
Deontay Harris, I really like this kid. He's fast. He's elusive. Get him the football. You know, he really hasn't gotten in a return game much because they're not kicking it to him. But get the ball in his hands on the screen passes, on the little toss sweeps. Secondly, some players to look out for. Sierra Ruiz. All right, we talked a lot about him in the draft. He's a high draft pick. I need to see him playing and producing a little bit. The Saints offensive line, especially in the interior, Drew Brees does not trust them. You saw him early. He's throwing off his back foot. He's kind of like scrambling around a little bit. Normally, we're used to Drew Brees stepping up. When Drew Brees steps up in the pocket, that's when he's best. And the interior offensive line has to give him that protection. And thirdly, Cam Jordan. Cam, where are you at? You have 0 sacks the first 2 weeks. You haven't basically done anything besides get a horse tackle. You're a leader on this team. You're a staple in this organization. I need you to play better. All right? Give me some predictions.
I'm going to start out here with a college football game. Going to go off the radar. The U versus Florida State big game, battle of Florida to see who the second best or the third best team in the state is behind the University of Florida and UCF. But I'm going Miami with the win, 37-20. I just don't think Florida State's all that good, and I think Miami is very good. And then here with the Saints game, I think it's going to be a very entertaining game on Sunday night. I think it's going to be a just down to the wire, but I'm going to go with the Saints winning. I think Drew Brees is going to make a big play at the end of the game to Kamara out of the backfield. Big play at the end. I'm going Saints winning 31-24.
All right, so I'm going to go with easy ones right now. LSU is going to defeat Mississippi State. The Nuggets are going to defeat the Los Angeles Lakers, and I'm going to get the finals that I always wanted. Two teams. It's going to be terrible for NBA ratings. It's going to be horrible. But I get to watch beautiful basketball, Elliot. All right, I get to see the Heat and the Nuggets play and beautiful passing, great defense, great players, and I'm excited for that. And the Saints are going to come out with a big Sunday Night Football victory as Drew Brees is going to throw for 350 yards and 3 touchdowns. And I'm going to send those tweets, and he's not going to be washed. He's going to be back, and it's going to be, oh, Drew Brees doesn't age. He ages like fine wine. You know, I understand how Tom Brady feels now because the constant fine wine wash week to week is kind of annoying. Also, what about your Falcons? We got to talk about your Falcons a little bit before we end the show. What happened on Sunday?
You know, I think it goes back to something we talked a lot about last year, and that was Dan Quinn. And, you know, when you have a fault as big as that, and it wasn't just one player messing up on that onside kick. It was 3 players messing up. And I think that starts at the top. I mean, and that was coming out of a timeout before the onside kick. The Falcons lined up for the onside kick, saw how the Cowboys were lined up, and called a timeout. And so I don't know if that was just an assumption by the coaches that the players knew, okay, you know, you can jump on the ball before 10 yards, or if it was just all 3 just had too much going on in their head. You know, Dan Quinn kind of talked about they have this, you know, they go through on when you're on the front line of the hands team, you know, you read where the ball goes. If it bounces and it's going to go over you, you go block for the second row. And if it's on the ground, then you have the ability to recover. But that ball was clearly on the ground. That ball was not bouncing anytime soon. So at some point, somebody had to step up and go get it. Nobody did. And I mean, just the defense in general was not good down the stretch at all in that game. You know, I mean, we hear the comments from Dirk Cutter saying the offense has to score more than 38 points. Like, that shouldn't be the case. The offense did their job. Matt Ryan did his job with an banged up Julio Jones.
Calvin Ridley played great.
Matt Ryan was great. The offense was great. The defense just wasn't. And again, it goes back to the frustrations. Dan Quinn is a defensive coach. Dan Quinn was a defensive coordinator of one of the greatest defenses in NFL history in Seattle when he had the Legion of Boom. And he has come to Atlanta, and he has been unable to find a consistently good defense. And this is a defense with talent. You've got Debo, one of the best linebackers in the league. You've got one of the best trio of safeties in the league in Keanu Neal, Ricardo Allen, and DeMonte Casey. You've got Grady Jarrett, one of the most underrated defensive tackles in the league. This defense is not necessarily a lack of talent. You know, you look at it, they went out and they got Dante Fowler. They drafted Marlon Davidson. There's talent on the defense. There's just too many issues on this defense to be explained. And when you have mental faults like that onside kick, it has to go to the top, which is Dan Quinn.
I think they're going to get a victory this weekend against the Bears. The Bears are maybe the worst 2-0 team. I've watched them the past couple of weeks. They just hang on there by the thread of a needle. I guess that's all you need to do in the NFL. But I think they get a victory this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, I think that'll be big for the Falcons to try to turn this around. Because honestly, I think if the Falcons lose this week and go to 0-3, and especially if Trubisky comes out and lights up the defense, I think that really will be the last straw for Dan Quinn. But yeah, the Falcons desperately need a win if they're going to turn this season around. Falcons still have to play the Saints 2 times, still have to play Tom Brady and the Buccaneers twice, still have to play the Panthers twice. So the Falcons need to start getting victories because sooner or later it's going to be starting to getting too late once again.
Agree. Thank you for joining me. I'll see you next week. It was fun.
See ya.
All right, see ya. That's the end of the Rougarou Sports Network. Stay tuned for all my cooking on my Instagram, and we're going to post this out tomorrow night on Friday. That's it. See you guys later. Have a good